What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Cashed Out, and today we're going to be talking a little bit more about the Lumix S5 Mark II. And this camera is fantastic. This has been my go-to camera now for a little over a month, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of my favorite features, 3 of my favorite features that I've come to really lean on over the past month of using this camera. Now, I won't say these are like the best features of this camera. These are just some of my favorite ones, and this is based on my workflow, the way I shoot, and just the style that I work with the camera. This is what I've seen to really be kind of my go-to features that I've leaned on a lot when it comes to doing work with this camera. So to start off, we're going to talk about the full-size HDMI and the USB-C power delivery port. Now, these may not be like the top billing for features when it comes to a camera, right? For normal people, this might not be like the first thing to get excited about, but for me, it's super exciting because I was coming from Canon, where we were using the micro HDMI still, which I have no idea why, but they're using the micro HDMI, so you couldn't use a full-size HDMI cable. And coming to Lumix and being able to have access to that, man, this is it's been such a great blessing for me with my workflow, because sometimes I actually do streaming on a weekly basis where we'll stream events for clients, and using that with a full-size HDMI has been really fantastic because I don't have to worry about fidgeting with a tiny little port and trying to get that to work. I can just use any HDMI cable that I have. I don't need to use any particular ones, and that's been just a time saver for me in terms of my workflow during the stream sessions. And the USB-C power delivery has been absolutely money, and this thing, I've been leaning on it so much because the battery life of the Lumix S5ii isn't as good as the Canon R3, because obviously the R3 has a massive battery, so the battery life has took a little bit of a hit when switching over to the S5 Mark II. So I've kind of been leaning more on the USB-C power delivery port, and I'm so thankful that it's there, because actually I had a shoot here this past Wednesday, and what I did is I actually had a 20,000 milliamp hour Morphe battery pack, and I basically used that using the USB-C port. I was able to power my 2 Lumix S5iis for like a 4-hour shoot, and the battery pack itself didn't run out of juice. It was only at half, which is awesome. I'll have to do a review on that one down the road, but having the USB-C power delivery allowed me to be able to continue to power these cameras. Even though they had the lower battery life with the smaller batteries, I was still able to get a 4-hour shoot in, and the cameras were still fully juiced at the end of the shoot because they were leaning on the USB-C power and not on their own battery life. So that's been really awesome, and it's convenient because I don't need to use like a battery adapter. I know Canon, when I was using the R6, I had to get the LPE6 battery adapter with the DC coupler and all that fun jazz, and that's just another thing to be able to lug around on set. So just being able to use USB-C, plug it into a power bank, or just plug it into the wall has been really handy and has been really useful for my workflow. And I'm excited to be able to tie this in. Obviously, I'm setting up somewhat of a rig where I can have the battery pack on my gimbal and then be able to power both my gimbal and my camera using USB-C. So that's been awesome so far. So those two, full-size HDMI, absolutely money, and the USB-C power delivery ports have been one of my favorite features so far using the S5 Mark II. Now, the second feature that I've really enjoyed on the Lumix S5ii has been utilizing the Waveform. Now, the Waveform is absolutely awesome when it comes to shooting video. If you're newer to shooting video, the Waveform is something you really want to get familiar with, and it can be really beneficial for you in terms of making sure you get great exposure for your shots. Now, what the Waveform does is it gives you a visual representation of your image, and it shows you where you might be clipping in your highlights and where your shadows might be getting crushed. So when you keep your image within that nice middle range with the Waveform, it allows you to be able to get a nicely exposed image and to be able to make sure that you're not blowing things out or crushing things completely out. And for me, I always use the Waveform when I'm editing in DaVinci Resolve, so it's really cool to see that they've included this feature in a sub $2,000 camera, and I'm really excited about utilizing it, and I've used it a ton, and it's definitely been such a blessing to have, because I can quickly glance and see where my exposure levels are and just be able to easily get it back to where I need it to be. So the Waveform, absolutely money, definitely a great feature to have when it comes to the Lumix S5 Mark II. The last feature that I want to talk about, and I'm actually pretty surprised that this has been one of my go-to and my favorite features on this camera, is the custom white balance capture. Now, the Lumix S5ii actually gives you like 8 different scenes that you can utilize with a custom white balance. Now, 4 of those scenes come with the custom white capture capture, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And the other 4 come with the Kelvin capture. Now, when it comes to the Kelvin scenes, these are similar to what you may have seen in the other cameras, where they allow you to be able to set the white balance based on temperature. And you can save 4 different scenes so that if you're going from like one room to another, you can just switch to a different scene and the white balance is already set. So that's been really awesome, and it was really cool to be able to see that, because I was using the Kelvin, the color temperature settings a lot with my Canon R3, so that was really neat to see. But what I really got excited about was the white capture white balance. And for me, I typically like to get kind of a true to life capture of my videos when I shoot, and then I can kind of add my feel to it later on in the edit. So when I saw that the white capture, essentially the way this works is that you actually put a white card in front of the lens and you capture the white of that card, and then the camera sets the white balance based off of that white object. And you can use a white card, or you can use something else in the room that looks white. I just like using a white card because I know for sure that it's white. So once you capture the white card, the camera will adjust the white balance to match what was seen on the white card. And this has been really helpful for me because I was able to set that white balance using the white capture card on 3 different scenes. So when I'm shooting a wedding or when I'm shooting an event and we're moving from room to room to room, I don't have to adjust or rechange everything. I can just switch to the other scene. And that white capture works really well for me because it gives me an actual true to life image on the white balance, and that's made it a lot easier in post because I can now put my feel, put my twist to it in the edit, knowing that it started off on something that was a solid white. So that's been really helpful for me, and I've really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed my workflow with that. It's been a lot easier in terms of setting white balance, in terms of making these adjustments on the fly. So overall, those have been some of my favorite features when it comes to using the Lumix S5 Mark II, and this camera just continues to impress me. I literally haven't had to really think about it much. It's just been grab, go, shoot, do what you need to do, and I don't have to worry about any like overheating or malfunctioning with the camera. I just know it's gonna be there. So that's it for today, guys. Just wanted to run through those features, kind of let you know what my experience has been so far. I'll be talking a little bit more about this camera on the Cashed Out podcast here later this week, so be sure to keep an eye open for that. And if you haven't seen my initial video in terms of the Lumix S5 II, be sure to check out that video here on one of the side boxes that is going to pop up on. But if you like this video, be sure to like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and tune in next time right here on Cashed Out. Take it easy, guys.